Today, I'm going to address a common question or curiosity that producers have about Pro Tools on the topic of using instrument tracks versus creating an audio VST track. Let's jump right into it.
J Kids. J Kids.
So when covering this topic, let's first give a shout out to Hipskind, who left this comment under one of my older tutorial videos, gave me permission to use it. So it reads, "Thanks for this. I have a question. In the inserts and sends part, you created an instrument via an audio plus MIDI track. Why did you do this instead of just creating an instrument track? I know either way works, but I was just curious if you had a specific reason for this." So great question. Let's get into exactly why I don't use instrument tracks. And so distinguishing the differences between the instrument track and the audio VST track that I create, let's get into the purpose of the instrument track. So we have some tracks here, and let's just close up some of these folders. So we have some audio VSTs and 2 instrument tracks, okay? And so the good thing about instrument tracks is that you can simply drag and drop your VST right onto the inserts, and you can record your MIDI right onto that track itself. So you don't need any extra MIDI tracks. And I consider it to be more of a performance-based track. So things like lead synths, synth basses, key basses, pianos, elements that have more of a performance or lead-based activity because of its limited ability to have only one channel. Now that brings us to the con of the instrument track, which only allows whatever VST you have set on there to host only up to 1 MIDI channel, even if your VST allows you to do more. Unlike the audio VST, which we'll get into later, allows you through MIDI to record, perform, or layer up to 16 channels through that one VST. And so I'm able to layer with voices, but not MIDI channels. And they're 2 different things because as you can see here in the VST, I have 16 voices. And so I'm able to play up to 16 voices without them cutting each other off. But that's not the same thing as being able to layer multi-channeled MIDI through a VST. So to show you how limited instrument tracks can be, let's open up Kontakt on this Instrument 2 instrument track where I do all of my drum programming. I can choose some drums. And now we have 3 kicks selected, but I'm only able to control this first channel. This channel 2, this channel 3, I'm not able to control, but I can control 1. And so again, it's more of a lead or performance-based type of track where I'm limited to just 1 channel. Now, let's go to our audio VST. So if I were to move this Kontakt down to my audio VST, now of course we don't control it. See, in the audio track itself, we control it by MIDI, which is why I have these set up down here. And all I have to do is route my MIDI track to the audio VST, channel 1. I can control that kick. Let's pick 2 more. I can now change or audition other kicks by changing the channel to number 2 and number 3. And so for me, it's way more flexible in being able to choose. And just because I have that extra step of having to route the MIDI to that VST, it's not really a workflow problem for me. It's not that much big of a jump. So an audio VST is simply a stereo audio track where I place my virtual instruments and VSTs on. And so yes, I've essentially created my own instrument track. So now let's talk about why I prefer the audio VST and how flexible and versatile it is. Number 1, it can do the same thing that an instrument track can do. It can record MIDI, you can commit your MIDI into audio, and you can add your plugins for mixing right onto your audio VST tracks, just like any type of track. The second thing is that I'm able to layer. So if we go back to audio VST channel 1, we'll put this as channel 2. I'm able to layer some drums here. I'm able to layer by using all of the channels I have access to through just this one VST, which I'm unable to do in an instrument track. So thus, I'm limited using instrument tracks for layering. Another positive is that it's more power efficient. And so I can use my audio VSTs as my placeholders for all of these MIDI channels, and I don't have to set up all of these VSTs on every single track that I want to perform instruments or elements on. And so thus I'm saving power by just using the MIDI and converting them or committing them into audio later. And so like I mentioned, the instrument track to me is more performance-based because it's limited to one channel. And in contrast, the audio VST gives me more freedom and flexibility to be able to layer. And so we see I have my kick drums here, but I can also layer in some native instruments within this one VST and control it all with my MIDI. And that is, of course, if you have multi-channel VSTs to pull up. But it's nothing wrong with instrument tracks. Again, if you're using keys and bass lines and things of that nature, I think it's absolutely fine to use it. And I would even say things like an 808 could be on an instrument track because it's not an element that you would typically layer. And so again, I prefer these audio VSTs where I can use as much MIDI as I need to be able to layer and compose out my tracks. Like I said, I believe it's way more flexibility when you have it set up this way. And so I hope I was able to break this down for you guys. If you have any questions, comments, or topics you'd like me to cover, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll be glad to cover them. I also have my production template on my website, jkidsmusic.com. Remember to like the video, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.